Hi guys, welcome to another movie crew review. Today we'll be reviewing Den of Thieves 2, Pantera.
The movie stars Gerard, Butler, O'Shea Jackson, and even Ahmed.
So this film follows the events of Den of Thieves, the first film, as we find Big Nick following on the plans of Donnie as he's escaped to Europe. And there's a big diamond heist that takes up the majority of the film. And there are other little subplots happening during the course of the film. We also see him working with Interpol and a bunch of different things happening. So we're going to get into the review today, and Cameron is going to start us off.
Yeah, this movie for me, as a follow-up to the first one, did well, but compared to the first one, I don't think it was as well done. I think the heist itself didn't have as much intensity as the first one, because in the first movie is very much they're being chased by the cops during the heist, whereas this one was just they were doing it all sneakily. I think, but it did held itself well with the intensity, but just not as high as the first one. And I did miss the banter between Gerard Butler's character with his group of cops. That was really missed in the second one for me. But it did well to turn it on its head and swap it around, so it didn't feel like the first one. It felt warranted to be a sequel, but it just didn't for me. Compared to the first one, it wasn't as good, but I still had a great time. I think the comedy was still the same from the first one. I did laugh a few times in this one. But yeah, I think being in Europe and with all the different languages and stuff, it was just, it didn't really resonate with me as well. Yeah. Moon?
So I haven't seen the first one. I didn't get any chance, so I didn't know what to expect here. I do love heist movies. I think The Town is one of my favorite heist movies. And here, Gerard Butler was really good in the movie. He's funny. He was the only character who was showing some emotions. And the movie start cooking when the heist was about to happen. Before that, it was just, oh, we got these people, and one is the techie, one is this guy, and we're gonna heist. And so it was just a bunch of nonsense. And when the heist that was pretty intense, and there were a couple of chase scenes which were very well done. And there was a point, Gerard Butler is like character, we can see him is conflicted, and I think the movie should have ended there, but it just kept going, and then yeah, I felt like it just dragged in the end. So I would say in the middle, the heist was good. Apart from that, it was fine. John?
Yeah, I mean, watching the first one, it's compared a lot to films like Heat, and as the first one goes, I think it hits a lot of those points, but in a different way. I think that this film doesn't really live up to the first one in terms of the interest for the Nick character and chasing Donnie, because now they're working together in this film, so he just feels a bit off. I still enjoy Gerard Butler's performance and the character. Probably that's my favorite part of this film, is how he's interacting now with the criminal side and going through the heist, and you get to see them working together to do this diamond heist about 2/3 of the way through the movie. So from that perspective, I really enjoyed it. But even the main heist, so you start off with a mini heist at the very start, which to me seemed a lot cooler than the heist that we got later on in the film, because it was a bit more like explosions and guns and in and out stealthily, whereas in the later half, they get to the safe with all the lock boxes and they've done everything all stealthily, and then they decide to just throw everything on the floor and then start picking it up, and it's one of those things that it's a small thing, but like when you watch Heat, when they break into the vault, they don't just start ripping open the money and throw it everywhere. They like cut it open, put it in the bags, and just start running it to the car kind of thing. So there's small things, but you know, the car chase I think was for me the standout at the end with the Porsches and the shooting. That I absolutely love. I just think that it was the action that I wanted, and it reminded me of the end scene from the first film where you have the cops versus the robbers as such, and the shootout that you had with them, but a different way. It's not the same thing that we're seeing from a time before, and it kind of wraps up a couple of storylines into a nice little ending. I think that, like Moon said, maybe when it was Nick was conflicted in Italy, I would have probably ended it there because it kind of has that, I don't know if you'd say cheesy, but everything works out for one of the characters, but it's teasing a second or third installment for this franchise. And it's something that I think, just leave it at 2. I don't think we need another one. I don't really see what's going to happen other than another heist and another heist and another heist. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, the car chase was really well done. I think in the European Alps, it looked beautiful. And what you said was right. It did offer that different dimension that the movie was really crying for, I think, was the action. It did. In the first one, there was a lot of action, and this one, there was far from it, in my opinion. I mean, when he's taking the drugs and hanging out with the criminals, when he's just beginning to get introduced to them, I did enjoy that scene, seeing Gerard Butler act that way. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, just compared to the first one, it just it can't be as good.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, being a fan of heist movies, I find that the first film was more like a Heat or The Town, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was more like action, and there was one big heist that they were all planning up to, and there was a lot of small things, but you had a lot of, cat versus mouse and things like that. Whereas this one felt more like Heist with Gene Hackman, that kind of film, where it's a lot of slow talking and planning, and then a slow heist to the escape at the end. It's one of those things that, I'm not saying it's a bad aspect, but the things that made the first Den of Thieves such a good film were the things that I felt were lacking from this one. And that's what kind of disappointed me a bit watching it, especially being the first one was similar runtime, about 2:15. So you have a lot of action for that. And especially like the last 40 minutes, like action packed.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it was like the same runtime, but we're lacking the whole action point of it. So you get to it like about 2 hours into the movie, and we're just finishing the heist. The heist has pretty much been a camera game to avoid the cameras, followed by throwing everything on the ground and chucking into garbage bags. And it's just something that, for me, was a bit lacking and a bit boring.
But yeah, it was just the side characters as well. Like I didn't care for any of them in this film.
Yeah.
But I tell you, in the first one, pretty much every character that comes on screen in the first one, I was interested in, and they all played a part in it. Whereas this one, it just felt, it was just the O'Shea Jackson Jr. and Gerard Butler show. And I mean, I do like their chemistry, but the first one, because it gives that different aspects with the different characters around them and then them working together, it made it much more interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, like, see, for me, 50 Cent's performance in the first one, especially that scene when he's with the boyfriend of his daughter and he like intimidates him. It's really got nothing to do with the film, but it just adds that little like spice, that little something extra where it breaks it up a bit, adds a bit of comedy to it, but it's not needed if you don't need it, but it's great to have it in there.
Yeah.
Whereas this never really had any of that. There's not really like anything in there that doesn't need to be in there. It's always like just heist.
Yeah.
Even like the partying scene, it's like to prove Nick's one of the boys. He's not a cop anymore as such. And it doesn't really, for me, like have any of those moments that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, because in the original one, the heist members, like you said, 50 Cent's character had that side story, so it kept you interested and it gave more to the character. Whereas these ones where your generic heist members that that are part of the crew, he's there because he's for the security, he's there to drive you, and they didn't really have any depth to it.
Yeah.
I guess I really need to watch the first one.
I think you do. I think you do. It is worth a watch. And yeah, it was good when I sat down and picked that up again. But yeah, the one thing I'd like to say is talking about heist movies. The best quote from Heat, my favorite one, is Al Pacino when he's interviewing Hank Azaria, and he's like, "She had a grass, and you had your head up in it." I love that quote. It's got really nothing to do with this. Just wanted to put it in there. So,
all right, guys, we're gonna give our scores.
Yep.
Moon, how many diamonds out of 10?
I'll give it 5.5 diamonds out of 10.
John?
I'm going to give it 5 diamonds out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it 6 diamonds out of 10. Alright guys, make sure to like, subscribe, check out our socials, and we'll catch you on the next one. Ciao.